Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to open up a communication toolkit and take a look at the 4 fundamental skills that, honestly, we all use every single day, a lot of the time without even thinking about it. So let's dive in. You ever have one of those moments? You've explained something you think is perfectly clear, but you just get a blank stare back. Or maybe you've sat through a whole meeting, and by the end, you're thinking, I have absolutely no idea what we just agreed on. It's frustrating, right? And almost every single time, it comes down to a simple breakdown in our most basic communication skills. But here's the really good news. Being a great communicator isn't some kind of magical gift that you're either born with or you're not. It's actually a set of skills you can learn. Seriously, the best way to think about it is like a toolkit. Anyone can learn to pick up the right tool for the job, and, with a little practice, you can get really good at using it. So what's actually in this toolkit? Well, there are 4 essential tools, and they fall into 2 main categories. First up, you've got your receiving tools. That's listening and reading. These are all about taking information in. Then you have your sending tools, speaking and writing. And these are, you guessed it, for getting your own message out. All right, let's start with those receiving skills. Think of these as your satellite dishes, constantly pulling in signals from the world around you. And just like a real satellite dish, they've got to be aimed in the right direction if you want to get a clear picture.
And this right here is a really crucial distinction we have to make. We tend to use the words hearing and listening like they're the same thing, but honestly, they're worlds apart. Hearing, that's passive. It's accidental. It's just sound waves hitting your eardrum. But listening is active. It's intentional. It takes real effort because you're not just perceiving sound, you're actively trying to decode a message.
And I love this quote because it really drives home just how challenging this skill is. Listening is a super complex activity. It demands our full attention. You're constantly monitoring, analyzing, and filing away information in your mind. It's a real mental workout. So why is it so tough? Well, there are a few usual suspects. Our minds wander, right? We lose concentration. Or we adopt what's called an inappropriate receptive poise, which is just a fancy way of saying you're staring out the window instead of looking at the person talking. Or sometimes we just get too relaxed. The main takeaway here is that listening is not a passive activity. It's a job that requires your full focus. Okay, let's grab our second receiving tool, reading. Just like listening, reading is fundamentally an act of decoding. You're taking a message that's been coded into a bunch of symbols, what we call a writing system, and you're working to decipher its meaning. And if you want to become a better decoder, it really helps to have a system. One of the most effective ones is called SQ3R. It's a simple 5-step plan. First, you survey the text. Just skim the titles and keywords. Then you ask questions. What do I want to get out of this? Next, you read with the specific goal of answering those questions. After that, you try to recall the key points from memory without looking. And finally, you review what you remembered against the actual text. It is such a powerful way to turn passive reading into active, engaged learning. Okay, so we've covered the tools for taking information in. Now, how do we get our own ideas out there? It's time to look at the sending skills, speaking and writing. Let's kick things off with speaking. Effective speaking really just boils down to 3 core principles. First, be purposeful. You have to know your goal and who you're talking to. Second, be clear. Use simple language, speak clearly, and watch your pacing. And third, probably the most important, be prepared. A great speech never just happens. It's carefully planned, developed, and practiced. Now for our final tool, writing. And you might be surprised to hear what the biggest hurdle is here. It's one word, disorder. It is so crucial to remember that writing is an organized system. It has rules, and if you disrespect those rules, if your writing is chaotic and all over the place, you risk the entire message just falling apart. So, how do we bring order to that potential chaos? The single most powerful step is proofreading. It's that very last stage of the writing process, where you carefully hunt for all those small errors, the typos, the punctuation mistakes, the grammar slip-ups, before your text goes out into the world. Think of it as your final quality check. And trust me, proofreading makes a massive difference. Just look at these simple examples. One of them are late. Nope, it's one of them is late. A classic subject-verb agreement error. Or trying to make a word plural that's already plural, like sheeps instead of sheep. These tiny fixes are what bring clarity and professionalism to your writing. So there you have it. We've unboxed the 4 main tools in our communication kit. But just like a real toolkit, they're not going to do you any good just sitting there collecting dust, right? They need to be used, they need to be maintained, and they need to be sharpened through practice. So let's do a super quick recap of the most important thing for each tool. For listening, the key is to be active, not passive. For reading, use a system like SQ3R to really engage with the text. For speaking, always be purposeful, clear, and prepared. And for writing, bring order to your thoughts through proofreading. See, each tool has a simple but really powerful principle behind it. And that really brings us back to the most important idea of all. Please don't ever think that you're just bad at communicating. It is not some innate talent. It is a set of 4 distinct skills that you can absolutely learn, practice, and master, one tool at a time. So I'll leave you with this one last question to think about. As you look at your own communication toolkit, which of these 4 tools could use a little sharpening?